Hi, my name is Heidi Miranda, and I'm going to be talking about the characteristics of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Today, I will be using references from many places, but those will be including the DSM-5 and the CDC, as well as the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. First, I'm going to go ahead and give a definition of ASD, and then I will go into the characteristics, including cognitive and neurological, sensory and behavioral, communication and language, as well as social characteristics. So first of all, what is ASD, or autism spectrum disorder? According to the CDC and the DSM-5, ASD is defined as a significant social communication and behavior challenges. So when you're looking for a diagnosis, they need to meet all of these areas. You can see any of these areas in any individual, but when somebody has significant difficulties with all of those areas with the social communication and behavior, that is when you can have a diagnosis of autism or autism spectrum disorder. So first of all, the cognitive and neurological characteristics that we see. 30% of individuals on the autism spectrum, or autistic individuals, have intellectual difficulties. They are meaning that their IQ is lower. However, there is a high correlation with people on the spectrum having a high IQ, actually being gifted, and there are more. If you look at the statistics of autistics versus neurotypicals, there are more autistic individuals who are high IQ than there are neurotypical individuals who have a high IQ. Anxiety and OCD are also common with ASD just because of the neurological differences. ADHD also shows similar brain patterns. If you were to look at a brain scan of someone with ADHD as well as an autistic individual, their brain scans will look very similar. And also there is a high rate of co-occurrence with ADHD and autism. So the sensory behavioral characteristics that we're going to notice are auditory. So let me start that over. So autistic individuals have been found to have sensory processing disorders or issues. And the reason why is because one of the characteristics of autism, or some of the characteristics of autism, can actually be linked back to their sensory overload or sensory processing issues. So you can see that they have a high rate of auditory sensitivity out of all of the senses. That tends to be the one that is the most sensitive for autistic individuals. They also can have a sensitivity to touch, or we can be looking at sensory processing issues where they either want more sensory input than a neurotypical individual, or they want less, and that's what we call either sensory seeking or sensory avoidant. So you may see somebody who really enjoys playing with slimy, sticky things. They want that texture on them all the time, or somebody who wants to run really fast and hit something really hard with their body because they want that input. Or you might see somebody who is very afraid of sticky and slimy materials. They do not want that on their skin at all. And so that would be more of a sensory avoidant. So with those sensory issues, we're going to see behaviors that follow those sensory processing issues. For example, avoiding overstimulation. So if you have a child or a person who really doesn't like loud places or loud noises, they're probably not going to want to go to a concert. They're probably not going to want to go somewhere where it's a very loud situation, and you're going to see them try to avoid those things. And sometimes you'll actually see autistic individuals run away from classrooms or from overstimulating birthday parties, those type of things. And it can be seen as misbehavior when really they're just trying to avoid overstimulation. Another thing that you will see is sensory meltdowns, which can look like somebody's just having a temper tantrum if you don't understand that their whole sensory system is completely shutting down or completely overwhelmed, and they need an outlet. They need a way to express that their body is out of control because of their sensory system. And then you'll also see them having strong preferences, which tends to be, people think that that can be an autism trait, which it can be because of restrictive, repetitive behaviors. However, sometimes strong preferences are actually linked to being sensory avoidant or sensory seeking. So next we want to look at communication and language when it comes to autistic individuals. And so the first one I want to talk about is the nonverbal communicators, because that is something that I have seen, depending on which community I'm talking to, either it's completely forgotten or it's all they think about when they think of autism and communication. So that's why I wanted to put it as the first one. So nonverbal communicators are the ones who do not have spoken vocabulary, or they have very limited spoken vocabulary. And so they use other ways to communicate, and that can include loud noises, that can include gesturing, pointing, grabbing for things, acting out what they're trying to say. All of those things can be nonverbal communication, and those are our nonverbal communicators. And sometimes ways to help them include adding in AAC devices, adding in PEC systems, giving them sign language, teaching them ways to gesture that could get their point across, so that way they can get their wants and their needs met effectively. Restrictive and repetitive communicators, these ones are the type that you'll see that have a very practiced communication style, and so they may introduce themselves every time that they're about to talk to someone, even if they've met that person a bunch of times. Hello, my name is Heidi. Anytime they enter a conversation, just because that is what they've been taught, or that is how they know how to start a conversation. Or this can also include echolalia, where they will repeat certain phrases that they've heard over and over again, or even out of context. And then there's also uneven language development that we'll see sometimes, where sometimes they will have a very large vocabulary, be able to tell long stories, and even a lot of these are the ones that are highly intellectual, but they might be lacking in understanding of nonverbal cues or other social communication styles. And so then that's where we come into social language difficulties, where there are some people with autism who have, it seems like normal communication on the surface, and it might seem more like a neurotypical communication style, but they have social language difficulties. So they have a hard time connecting with someone on a conversational level, or being able to have a reciprocal conversation, or be able to pick up on those social cues or the nonverbal cues that a neurotypical might pick up on. So the social characteristics of ASD according to Bellini in 2006, say the difficulties include initiating interactions, responding to the invitations of others. Oops, let me go back. Sorry about that. I don't know why it won't let me go back. Okay, sorry about that. So initiating interactions, responding to the initiations of others, maintaining eye contact, sharing enjoyment, reading the nonverbal cues of others, and taking another person's perspective. So these are all things that can interfere with social interactions with autistic individuals. However, I would like to note that these interactions don't seem to be so complicated when you're looking at autistic to autistic or neurodiverse to neurodiverse as much as when you see neurotypical to neurodiverse interactions. So there seems to be a higher level of understanding of social norms and social cues when it comes to interacting between neurodiverse and neurodiverse and neurotypical and neurotypical. So I just thought that that was an interesting thing to note. And these are my references. I'll move my face over here. There you go.